Hello, I'm Jared. I'm at Houghton Park. We're doing a painting today. We're going to be painting a beautiful flower and a butterfly. Don't forget, if you're underage, you got to get your parents' permission first. But let's go over our supplies that we're going to be using. First of all, we're using some acrylic paint. We're going to be using some blue, some green, some orange. I've got 2 spots with some white paint. I've got 2 spots with yellow, just because those go fast. I got a little brown, which we might not even need the brown, but just in case. And we have black as well. So naturally, judging by these colors, we'll be painting a monarch butterfly. All right, we're just using acrylic paint today. Make sure that you got a bucket with some water and some napkins too. And I got some brushes here. We've got a big brush to do our backgrounds, just to make it a little bit easier and faster. And then I grabbed a bunch of small brushes too. All different sizes, different shapes. They all do different things. All right, but for starters, we'll start blocking out our elements. We'll have our flower here and our butterfly about right here. All right, so for starters, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab this brush. It's just kind of like a medium-sized brush. I'm not gonna do the background first. I'm gonna just kind of dampen this brush a little bit. It's got just some water, just to help the paint flow. And I'll go into some of the orange. But rather than just use this dark orange color, let me grab a little bit of this white paint here and just kind of mix those together. Our butterfly and our flower shouldn't be too dark, but just for starters, let's get our painting going with a little bit of light orange. So where is our flower gonna be? Somewhere about right here. So all we really need to do is make the shape of the flower. Mine's gonna have a lot of little petals and things. It might not be perfect, but that's okay. It's just the shape of the flower. And then we'll have our butterfly on top. So we wanna make sure that we got a nice wide flower. Grabbing a little bit more paint. Going over here. Beautiful, just starting to fill up this little spot. So naturally we'll have the stem coming down. We got a big spot where we could put a yellow stamen in there. All right, and just continuing to go around. We don't need to paint the petals. We don't need to make all our individual details yet. All we want is, where the heck is the flower gonna be? It's gonna be right in the center here. We know the petals are gonna go all the way out to about there. But again, we don't need to make it all perfect. We don't need to worry about painting all the details yet. Let's just get it started. And let's also start our butterfly too. Going into the same colors here, just some light orange. Let's paint the single butterfly wing. So if our butterfly's body is about right here, the wing will kind of be pushed way back there. And they always kind of have one big, almost like a giant bee. They've got one big section at the bottom here, and one little section on top. So just going for the outline of that butterfly wing there, I can kind of use some of this light orange here. Fill that in a little bit. And look at this, so I've got all these little spots where the paint didn't quite fill it in, giving it a little bit of a dry brush look. Well, if I just dip my bristles in some water, just a little bit of water, I can go paint back over it and fill in all those little gaps there. Just a little touch of water and you can fill in all these little spaces and things. All right, and you can kind of already see, oh, there's a butterfly wing there. Here's the pad of a flower sitting here. Maybe it'll look a little bit different by the time we're all done, but we've got the elements there. So let's switch to this big brush now. We can start putting in some things in the background, and we only need to indicate them. So let's grab a little bit of our green. So I've wet my brush. Let me just get the excess water off. And I'll go into some green paint here. So our background's gonna be just the idea of all these nice like grasses and bushes, all these things just flowing in the background. So I'll put some of this dark green down at the bottom here. And look at how I'm doing it. I'm just kind of pushing the color in there, letting it be a little bit crazy. It's kind of thin, but that's okay. All these little like details where it's a little bit lighter, a little bit darker, you don't have to paint those, but they will work for you at the end. So let's see, I've got some of this dark green paint. Let's add some yellow in there too. Make it nice, almost like a lime green. This is an interesting color. It's a little bit lighter. Let's put this up at the top too, see how it looks. All right, so pushing that color in. Oh man, look at this. I'm going real crazy with it, but I've got a spot here where it's a little bit more yellow. Hey, that's kind of interesting. Let me try to keep that. And over here in the corner, it's a little bit more lime green. That's cool. But here, by wiggling my brush, making all these crazy brush strokes, now I've got all this stuff happening up here. It's not just a flat color. So I'm gonna take my brush, get a little bit of water, just a little bit, just the tips of the bristles. And I'll go back into the paint here. So now I've got, again, some green and some yellow on my brush. I'll kind of go into this middle part here. But now look, so I've got all this paint, and again, I have this dry brush look. Let me just dip the bristles, just the tips, in a little bit of water. Oh, I didn't even have to get more paint. Look at that, I can just fill in all those little spots. Kind of make these colors touch down here. There we go. We don't need to use too much paint when you're just doing a subtle, soft little background. And another reason why I wanted to keep it nice and light back there, so that the details in the front are nice and dark, they'll stand out a lot more. Blending these colors together a little bit down here. So again, I've got all this stuff happening. There's all these like exciting little bits of darkness and light all kind of bouncing around on top of each other and whatnot. Let me put some color up here too. Go around my butterfly. I'm gonna try not to paint too much on my butterfly wing. That's why I wanted to put that in there first, so I wouldn't have to paint over the green. But if I get a little bit on there, it'll be okay. But now I've got all these little details and things. And the whole reason for all that craziness in the background is so that when you step back, it looks like, oh, that could be some grass back there. That could be a whole bush. Again, I got my dry brush look there. So rather than add more paint and just make it darker and darker, just with some water on the brush, I can kind of push this same paint all the way around, right up next to this butterfly wing here. Go from the top to, ooh, look at that. Right into my butterfly wing. That's okay though. Especially since it's a monarch butterfly, we'll be able to use the black to kind of redefine the edge too. So have no fear. And as I always say, if your painting looks bad, don't call it bad. Just wait till the very end and then see what it looks like. Because sometimes our paintings go through these different phases where they really just don't look too good until the very end. But don't worry about it, it's okay, it's an everybody thing. So here I've got a little bit more of this color, just some light green. You know what, let me kind of mix it up a little bit. I need some more of this darker green, so rather than use the green that had a whole bunch of yellow, let me grab a little bit more of this dark green on my brush. But now the darker colors, I want them a little bit more focused on the bottom of the painting. That way it'll have more gravity, more weight at the bottom. Let's see, I'm gonna get excess paint off of my brush. Just add some more of the dark colors here. Now I'm deliberately keeping my brush strokes all crazy and willy-nilly. Because if you do look at nature, there's not a lot of patterns. There's not a lot of things that happen in repetition, like when it's man-made or something. There's a lot of things that are very unexpected. So a great way to get unexpected results in your paintings that makes things look very organic, just shake your brush up a little bit. Change your brush stroke so you're not doing the exact same thing over and over and over. I like to use little circles and whatnot. And all I'm doing right now is just filling in the background, just getting something interesting going back there. Now right here where the bottom of the flower is, I want it to be light. I want to keep this area a little bit lighter. That way I can pop in a nice dark stem right there and it'll stand out. So here, let's just close in all this white canvas here. We'll just cover all that up. Just little by little, squeeze all that green right in against those leaves, or right in against those petals. All right, so now we've got a big, huge mess there. So let's soften it up a little bit. So let's take a little bit of the dark green and a little bit of this white. Make a nice light color. A little bit of the yellow can be mixed in there too. And I just want to thin this down with some water, just to make it kind of like an ink-like consistency. Just something real subtle. And now I'll make some larger brush strokes in the background just to kind of hide some of these other things. Just very gently. We don't need to go all over the place. I just kind of want to soften up some of the real rough spots. Like things got a little bit crazy, so might as well give it a little TLC just to kind of make it look a little bit more like how my heart feels about it. Step outside of the process, get more into what my desires as an artist are. So if you're already done with your background, don't worry about it. You don't have to do this, but this is my way of just using a little bit of this color to once again hide some of my brush strokes. That's just what I like to do. So just using a thin down light green. Oh, that might be too much up there. So again, just using a little bit of water on the brush. I can kind of spread that color out. Put it right where I need it too. Ooh, we can go crazy with our backgrounds. We don't want to take too much time. Let's make it look good all over. Just softly, very gently going over these spots. So when you paint, if you have a brush stroke that doesn't look too good, don't be dismayed. Like I say, don't say it's bad till it's done, because you can layer things on top. You can put other colors, you can diminish it, you can bring out the good just as well as you can bring out the bad. So we can just focus on making everything improved in stages. Just going around to make sure that I get all of this white canvas there. So we got our rough background. The background's just kooky and crazy. We can probably put in some specific details in a second. But let's look at our flower. Let's look at what we have going on here. What we're gonna need to do is paint in some darker elements inside this flower and bring the petals out. So now I don't need a giant brush like this. Let me switch back to this medium-sized brush. So I've got this one here. Now if I just go into the orange straight out of the bottle, because we lightened this one, I wonder what it would look like. So down here, let me kind of darken this on the inside of this flower. I can make little sort of like U shapes and little lines from the sides. And that'll sort of make the underside of your petals here. So like down here, if I do the orange straight out of the bottle on the bottom side of this flower, and then kind of pull it up and pull it in from the sides, I can start to make all these little shapes and let's say individual petals that I can then make a highlight on and finish them. But hey, I'm just kind of going crazy with it. I'm just trying to find little spots where I can tuck in a little bit of dark color there. So I've got plenty of ways to go back and forth and bring out the highlight if I go too dark. So let me just put some dark color there. So what I did was add the dark shadow. I kind of pushed it down inside the flower. But if you see, there's all these lighter spots from when I originally painted it. Now let's look at those real quick, because that's where the real magic's gonna be. Grab some of this yellow color, grab some of this white, put those together, and then get a little tiny bit this orange. So a real pale orange. Oh, and as always, be careful if you're mixing darker colors and lighter colors. The dark colors will just eat up all your light colors, so be real gentle. I'm gonna add a little bit of the dark color into my light colors, and that's a good color right there. So I can go over here, and I'm just gonna focus on the spots where there's already like a light area there. Oh, I can get a little bit lighter with this color. That's a little too dark. Don't forget, our acrylics will always dry darker. So I'm gonna grab a little bit more paint here. And I'm just gonna paint these individual petals here. Some of them going off to the side. Some of them coming in from the front and going back. And I'll leave a little spot in the middle here. I'll even just grab some yellow. And just start poking in a little bit where our butterfly's feet can rest. Oh, I lost one of my petals, but that's okay. So that's just gonna be my main spot there where our stamen is. Add a little bit of white so it stands out more for everybody at home. I'll grab a little bit more of this light orange here. Just keep dragging that in. So make sure that you leave some of your shadow as you put your petals in. And don't worry, we can always go back over them too. They don't have to be the final petals. Put a little bit of highlight on the top here. Your idea is that you want to have your highlight on the top and your shadow on the bottom. You always follow that principle. Your darkness and your light will always look good. All right. So there's just a little start of it there. And again, I can always darken things up. So say I wanted this to be a little bit darker here. Oh, I can use that brown that I was debating about earlier. A little bit of brown on my brush, a little bit of orange. And this is where you can start to really kind of define these individual petals and bring things out. Then you can layer them as well too. If I wanted to put some dark petals on the bottom, let's say, just a few little dark ones, I can then go in and add some of the lightness on top. Let's make this one maybe a little bit more orange shifted, or I'm sorry, yellow shifted. Put the light petals on top. Have them cascading out. All right, so we got our flower petals going. Let's just get a little bit on the center of the flower. I'm gonna use some yellow and white together, just because the yellow is so opaque, so transparent, the opposite of opaque. So we'll see right through the yellow. So what I'm gonna do is use some of this white too. I'm just gonna kind of poke in the center of this flower, and I want it to be sticking up just a little bit. Almost like it's a hairy, fuzzy little section for the butterfly to land. And again, just with some white and some yellow on my brush. I've got all those colors kind of mixed in right there. All right. So now what we've got to do is go over to our butterfly there. Let me grab a little bit of some orange. So I have my dirty brush with the yellow and the white. Now I just grabbed some orange on there too. I'm gonna darken up part of this part of this butterfly wing back here. I'm gonna be calling the wings petals and leaves now. Maybe a little bit darker with some brown and some orange. Just to start defining this wing up here. And then let's get a little bit on the very bottom. Not too much, we just need a little touch. And then, I'm debating a little bit in my head if I want to lighten up that wing. I think it will be nice. So if yours got a little bit dark, I'm gonna take a little bit of lightness here, just in this one like middle section. So not everybody will need to do this, but I did want to make it darker at the top and the bottom and a little bit lighter there, because now we can just go into our black paint here I'm not using too big of a brush, just about the right size. And we can paint in the butterfly's head. Now these butterfly bodies, oh, please forgive me. Butterfly bodies are so bizarre. They do have like a little head here and they've got their long body, but oh man, they have weird, weird shaped bodies. And they're all black, so they're really hard to define. But I've definitely put a little splotch, like a little circle out there, and then kind of just drag the brush back. You can make a few little bumps too if you want, and just kind of tuck the body underneath the wing. So you could imagine that maybe the body goes back behind the wing too. But now, one good thing about using a brush like this is I can make these long little marks like so. Let me reload the brush a little bit better. So I can use how the brush is flat and just tap it and it will make a line for me. So I can tap these and then tap them straight down into our flower here. And these will make the little butterfly feet. So they kind of go up like this sometimes too. Oof, I don't want to make him look too bizarre. But we also got to put these antennas, so I'll use this flat brush and just kind of tap the tips of the bristles. Give the little antennas, and then they've always got like a little divot at the end of the antenna, I realize. Oh, and this is the part that always trips me up about the butterfly bodies. They don't have this weird like human neck. I always kind of draw the butterflies like they got shoulders. It kind of goes back a little more from the back of their head. That looks a little bit more like a butterfly. Not as much like a person. So now that we got black on our brush, I'm gonna use a little bit of water just to help that paint flow. If you notice, it's kind of just a little touch of water, but I can use that on my brush to help define this wing. So I'm gonna go around the top. I can cover up any mistakes that I made and just start making this butterfly wing look a little bit prettier. It's gotta be pretty, right? It's a butterfly. Oof, I don't want to mess it up too much. Watch out on your curves. That's gonna be the hardest part. Let me guarantee you. But we'll just take that, and then there's always, looking at my picture, I don't want to mess up my butterfly too much. There's always like a second line that goes through and comes over. But now this is just one whole wing, so you don't want to divide up the wing too much. And if you want it at home, you can indicate another wing back there behind it. Here we go, connect that there. Oh, let's give it a little bit more of this like butt back here. Just something there. What do they call it on insects? They're like, it's not an abdomen, but there's like a word for it. What is that?
Is it like their probate or something like that? something weird.
All right, so butterfly or monarch butterfly wings have a little section here of black. And then at the tips of the wings, it's a little extra black too. So I'm just choosing to make my own sort of like pattern here, using these little brush strokes, kind of circling, just to bring in a little color. So it's not just a solid stripe of black there. And now check this out. This is the part that makes it really look like a butterfly. Making all these little lines that go inside and in between. Ooh, and you can make up these shapes. But if you look at a sample, if you look at a real butterfly, it will make your painting look better. But you don't have to. So what I'm gonna do is grab a little black paint, just move it across here in this weird shape like this. I just made kind of like a big teardrop shape. Well, that's kind of a weird shape, but if I connect it in these sections over here, that's starting to look kind of like butterflies that I've seen before. And then here, and then we'll just connect it here. I'll connect it there, and I'll connect it there. So we've got all these little sections inside our butterfly wings. So I've got a smaller brush here. Feels like the top's gonna fall off, so let me squeeze that together. Use a little bit of water just to kind of wet the brush. And now let's make some details on our butterfly. Oh, I could use a smaller brush too even. So if you wanna do real tiny brush strokes, use a real tiny brush. Because no matter what, every time you paint, your brush stroke will be a little bit bigger because the paint kind of like spreads it. But here I'm just gonna go through and make some dots. For starters, I'll start with the outside. Go around the wings. The tips of the wings, the dots will be nice and big and strong. We'll do like a double layer too. And our butterfly's starting to take effect. Oh, and don't forget, the bodies of the butterflies are covered in spots too. Let's see. Oh, that's a big spot. That looks good. Woo. All right, let's get this other one going too. Some spots, white splotches. So with the white, it's also transparent. You will see through it. So I say use a good amount of paint. You don't need a giant dollop, but if you use a good amount, it'll definitely help. Let me strengthen up some of these ones here. And now what I'm gonna do with this white is also just very gently kind of caress the inside of these shapes here, right next to the black line. Look at that little touch of white right next to it really just brings out something that's going on there, something that wasn't there. Just a little bit in there. Helps me really clean up some of my rough lines too, so that's good. That's what I'm saying, like you really don't want to trash talk your painting too soon. If it's not looking good, just wait. We've got always layers and layers that we can put on top. And no matter what, even if your painting doesn't turn out good all the way at the end, you've learned something. The paint will always teach you, and you will be getting better no matter what, even if you don't feel it right away. So here I'm going to use a little bit more white in this stamen here just to kind of give it some more contrast, make it look a little bit more beautiful. Maybe I'll even take a little bit of this white and orange together and just kind of bring out some of these petals right here. Just for my own sake. I just want to lighten that up. But then we don't want to forget about one of the most important parts of our flower here. It doesn't just float in the middle of the air. I'm going to use a little bit of green and a little bit of yellow, not too much. I'll just touch right underneath this flower and then bring it straight down. Now let's see. So what I always say is when you paint something, you got to give it at least two colors. So let's go in with some white and some yellow. My brush is kind of dirty, so it's going to turn green anyway. This is still wet, so it's going to turn green. Let me just scrape down some of this color on the side there, just to give it a little highlight. And because I'm a little bit particular, I'm going to go through the middle and just kind of blend the two colors a bit. And it already just makes that one little section a little teeny tiny bit more interesting, just a little teeny tiny bit. And then let's make a leaf on this side. I'm gonna do kind of like this curling leaf here. Just an interesting little doodad leaf. And let's get some, just like we did here, some yellow and some white. I'll kind of put that in here as well. And go back in and just define it a little bit better. Ooh, the bottom got kind of messed up here. So I don't want it to be as rough as that. So let me just go and just help it out a little bit. And with this, we got our backgrounds blocked in. We could always do some exciting stuff with the bushes. We've got our flower here. We could darken this up. We could add more flowers in the background. We can have butterflies flying around, but you know what? We've got our backgrounds. We've got a butterfly here. We've got a flower. All the elements are in place. Let's see what the painting looks like as is without the tape. So at the top of the show, what I always do is tape off my painting to give it a nice mask. And let's see if I take the tape off, pulling away from the painting, it might have a nice little border at the end. Let's see how we're looking. Ooh, the border helps clean it up a little bit. Helps keep your paint located to your work area. And then it's almost like you have a little built-in frame at the end. So here's our picture. Just a quick little impression, a subtle idea of a flower and just a butterfly lighting on top of it. All right, thank you all so much for coming out and joining me in our painting excursion today. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it. If you subscribe, if you like the content, we'll make more. And if you have any suggestions, please leave us a comment. All right, thank you so much for coming. We'll see you next time, Long Beach. Bye. Bye.